Yeah.
let's start with just that.
Yeah.
What have you thought of Dallas this year?
I don't like watching them play basketball.
I hate watching them play basketball. That is actually my number one takeaway. That team has Luka Doncic, who is one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA, and I fucking hate watching that team play basketball.
Yeah, it's not fun. Like their offense is just anemic. Uh, and I think what is frustrating on one hand is like I think as soon as guys start shooting better, this probably looks a little bit differently, and maybe they'll
Yeah.
talk themselves into saying we don't need to make a move. But then again, I think the exact same issues are going to come up in the playoffs. Which, again, to be fair, they made the Western Conference Finals last season, but I think the same issues would rear their head. I do struggle with how much this front office just leaned into, well, we're not going to do much and we'll wait till next year. I think with how well Luka is playing, I would be pretty pissed if they don't do anything at the trade deadline and something significant, not like just we're going to try and pick up an eighth man. Like
Yeah.
I think they have to do something more than that. It like the biggest frustration for me has just been the things that worked for them last year. They aren't playing at the same level. Like it's not hitting in the same way. Part of that has been trying to figure out everything with Christian Wood for sure. I don't think that the defensive fall off is strictly because of the guys that they did move on from. I think a lot of the defensive fall off does just have to do with the shift that they've made in personnel. I don't think they've played to the same like extent that they did last year in terms of just their communication and overall effort. And granted, like their defense fell off as the year went on too, to be fair. But overall, like I think that just talking to people in Dallas, like the overall attentiveness just has not been there generally, even in just watching games too. I felt that. But it's the offense that's just gross, man. Like it's the seventh ranked offense, but that is the worst seventh ranked offense I've seen because it's just a shot making fest. Like Luka is, granted, Luka's a wizard. He's extremely fun to watch. He does incredible things with the ball in his hands that you can't stop. But the issue is, it's okay. Luka's doing stuff with the ball in his hands, or Spencer Dinwiddie is isolating it, and it never really feels like there's any kind of secondary stuff going on. It's very much one and done offense. It just hasn't hit in a way that I like. The Luka and Wood minutes are fine. Like there's good stuff there, but it also just Jason Kidd doesn't feel super willing to lean into that in closing lineups and what that can be.
Here's the thing though. Would you, with the way those two players defend?
No, I get that. Like I totally understand that. But at the same time too, it's like, okay, well, what other options are there? Like what else are we supposed to do? What are we leaning into that's making us a better team? And it is not what they're doing right now. And I think part of what's been difficult too, like, and maybe part of this is just because overall ball movement is worse. Like Spencer Dinwiddie is having a nice individual season, but I do think that I would really like to see him be more of a secondary guy. Cause like, even though he is a quote unquote secondary on the team, like he plays like a primary, like he's getting.
Well, yeah. Like here's the question I wanted to ask you is like a follow up here in terms of the offense. Like you look at Spencer Dinwiddie's box score numbers, and they're really, really good. Like he's averaging like 16 points, six assists. I think he has like a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. He's shooting 41% from three. I feel like he doesn't like add much. Weirdly.
No, I would agree with that. I don't.
Like,
yeah, no, I don't. His defense has been really bad. He just point blank. His defense has not been good enough. He gets blown by constantly. Like he can do some okay things as a help defender, but I don't think that it's always there. And the on ball has been bad. If his shot's not falling, it's kind of the same thing we just talked about with Tyler. Like he's averaging 5 assists, but I think that's more like, okay, I don't have a shot. I'm passing the ball. Like it feels very like Karis LeVert grenade assist more than like straight up I'm creating real advantages and getting you open shots. And again, to be fair too, like Dorian Finney-Smith has not been the same offensive player this year. Part of that is the shot not being there, but it just doesn't feel like the advantages and openings that were there for their secondary players last year have been there in the same way. Like Dorian Finney-Smith was awesome putting it all together last year and really becoming a dribble pass shoot wing. Like there's always going to be questions with the shot. Teams are always going to test him in the playoffs. But during the regular season, like that was a real guy who can keep the offense moving, operate within it. And it just hasn't been good this year in terms of his overall
Yeah.
finishing. And that's been a problem. And like his handle hasn't felt right either, which is weird after it looking like way better last year. I mean, the one positive thing has been Josh Green. Like I think that they're starting to find more ways to include him, make things work. But at the same point, too, like Josh Green is 22 years old. He's still very limited, even though he is finding more ways to be impactful. Like Dwight Powell is nice at times, but again, like
Dwight is very good at his role of screening and rolling. Dwight is not awesome at anything else. The thing is, though, that when you have Luka Doncic and you're screening and rolling every possession multiple times, it's a really helpful thing to have out there, right?
yeah, exactly. But it feels like almost, and maybe this is being unfair to Dwight because I don't mean I think Dwight is still a very capable NBA rotation player, but like it almost feels like Dwight is in that spot of it's like, oh well, we played JaVale McGee for the first 10 games of the season. Dwight looks pretty awesome now, doesn't he? Like it's like yes, but like what if you just had a center who was capable or just a big who was capable of playing, in more scenarios, being a little bit more versatile, bringing more than just being a screen and roll guy. And I think like, again, like Gafford's not perfect, but I think like he brings a lot more in theory defensively. Well, not even just in theory, like he brings a lot more defensively. Foul trouble is always a thing, but like, I just like it, and it's not just like saying like Gafford, like, okay, like that could be a fun Kelly Olynyk team. I don't know. I wonder if they actually lean into the things that he can do, but it's like, okay, well, what if you start adding more things than just having like these guys who can really only do one or two things well? Then it's, you start talking about like, what are we actually trading? What's there to be traded?
I'm like a little bit less interested in Kelly for them because they already have Maxey. Maxey does a lot of similar things playing the 4 as Kelly does, is like your combo big. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if you want to play both Kelly and Maxey together because neither of them are great rim runners for Luka, right? And I feel like you always want that high level rim runner for Luka, or maybe you want like multiple floor spacers out there, but I don't know. That then leans into like Luka's potentially like worst habits, maybe. I don't know. I feel like that just becomes more ball dominant if you run out like Dorian Finney-Smith, Kelly Olynyk, and Maxi Kleber in the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. Then like literally every possession is just grinding down with Luka at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Funny statistical anomaly so far this year. I think it's more that than like an indicator, but the Mavericks are 0-7 this year when Christian Wood plays 28 minutes or more. They are 7-0 when he plays 25 to 27 minutes in a game.
Interesting.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, so like, I wonder if they're looking at it like, maybe we want to keep his minutes like in that 25 to 27 minute range because that's when we're most successful. And I think that's kind of like an inconsequential, like weird way to look at it. But also like Christian Wood does bring you real defensive deficiencies. So like, if you do try to close with him, I think that it's a problem. So I don't know. It's a weird thing that's happening though, right?
Oh, very. Yeah. It's just a weird team, man. Like I don't, it's hard to have like super concrete opinions on it just because I mean, or not that you can't have concrete opinions on it, but more just like, I feel like I'm just reiterating a lot of the same things I said at the beginning of last year, and it's bland. I think bland is the best way to put it.
Well, so like here, so let's move on. Let's talk about like what they could do, right? Yeah. The guy that they need is a guy that can be a secondary ball handler, can defend, and can also like knock down shots and play next to Luka as like a super processor, right? Jalen Brunson ticks most of those boxes except for the defensive one, which is why losing Jalen Brunson, I think, has been such an important, critical thing for them.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really hard for them to find something better than Jalen Brunson out there, which is why I kind of thought they just had to pay him whatever he asked for last year and just bit the bullet. It's hard for me to find the guy that like totally lines up. I will say if I was them, this is a team that I would be very interested in taking a flyer on Emmanuel quickly.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Quickly would be awesome there. Like I love the idea of what he could be in that group. Being like the actual guard who can, like he's still again like I think ironing things out, and part of it is like just him having a bigger role and being encouraged to be more aggressive because he actually he's weirdly had moments this year of like being two pass first, which
Mm-hmm.
is like that diminishes his value because like I think like he's a guy who at his best like he's like the ideal combo guard in my opinion. Like he's not Tyrese Halliburton, but he does a lot of the same principles of like even if I'm not putting tons of pressure on the rim, I'm getting paint touches. The floater is very real for him. And he does things so quickly, relocates and moves off the ball well. Like that makes it like feasible for him to really initiate offense. And I think if a team like leaned into really playing it with pace and letting him do things, like I think that could be really good for them. I still just my biggest things like the Knicks letting him go would be ridiculous, but yeah, if he's available, then fuck yeah, Dallas
Which,
should do that.
by the way, it's been reported that
Yeah,
like they're considering it. That's why I bring him up. The thing that hasn't been reported is what Chicago will look to do, period. Right. Um, if this continues along a trajectory where they're, 20 and 30 come the trade deadline and it looks like things are a problem there, do they look to move an Alex Caruso? Because Caruso is a guy that I would be willing to pay like a substantial amount if I was Dallas for.
definitely. Yeah, no, he would be incredible there. Like that ups their defense automatically. Obviously not doing like the full on creator things, but he brings a lot as a passer. Yeah, like that's a no brainer for me. He'd be a starter for them.
I think he would be their starting two guard or starting point guard with Luka doing whatever Luka does or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call Luka positionally, right? Um, it's then you kind of just look around and it's kind of hard to find the teams that are like totally out of it. I mean, Eric Gordon is theoretically a guy that could make sense, but I would almost want someone that's better at the point of attack defensively, which is why Caruso I think makes more sense than Eric Gordon, and why I actually worry a little bit about the quickly idea. But I just think that at the end of the day, they need to find someone that can be like a point guard that can also shoot and take some of the load off of Luka.
Mhm.
Um, is there anyone else out there that you look at and think that's an interesting fit that could work?
Uh Not really, because I feel like people will mention Bojan, but I don't love the Bojan fit in Dallas. Like, I think like obviously there's just like a level that he brings that guys on the roster don't have. So on one hand, yes, that's an upgrade, but also I think if you're not really being creative in how you're getting him the ball, and also really incorporating movement sets, which I just don't trust Dallas's offense to do right now because
Yeah.
even despite the offense ranking well, like it's not good offense. Like in terms of like actually being complex and not that an offense has to be complex to be good, but you get what I'm saying. Like I think
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like they need to do more to be capable of really making things happen. And I just don't trust them in doing that. So to me, it's like just adding another guy who is not really a great ball mover, who is shot or miss, and it gets wonky. I just don't know like who's out there that's really available. Like this feels like a really weird trade market here. Like you mentioned, I feel like Washington just has kind of a stranglehold on what this could be.
Yeah. I agree. Um, I don't think. Look, is there anyone else you want to talk about here, team wise? Because we still got to get to the Jarace Walker thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I don't know. Maybe we'll save this for another time. But those are the two teams that I think like desperately need a shakeup. The Heat
yeah.
and the Mavs have to do something. I think, and it's hard for them both because they have limited assets. Like the Mavs still have the pick out from the Porzingis deal. The Heat still have a pick out from what deal? I can't remember what deal. But like they don't have their full capacity of picks here.
Hmm.
And anytime that that's the case, it becomes a little bit harder to make a move. And I don't know. It's going to be a tricky one, I think, moving forward for both of those teams.